let's just jump right into this explainer. I want you to literally put yourself in the shoes of a desperate patient. Transport yourself to the year 2026. Okay? The cancer has been winning for 9 grueling months, you're out of conventional options, and you're sitting in this sterile waiting room, about to make a completely monumental decision. We're going to break down an incredibly compelling thought experiment today. It's one that really tests the absolute limits of medical ethics, consciousness, and honestly, what we're willing to sacrifice for a literal utopia. So imagine the scene. You're holding one of those cheap blue ballpoint pens, the flimsy plastic kind you might accidentally walk out of a bank with. The room smells faintly of burnt coffee, and a woman named Elena has just slid a massive 43-page contract across the desk. Now, you aren't reading the fine print. You're just a dying person, frantically flipping to the signature line, looking for the part that says yes to cryogenic preservation. You sign it. Your hand is shaking violently. But there's a tiny detail you barely notice at the time. Through an open door, you can hear a second pen scratching against paper in the very next room, right at the exact same moment. Now, hold on to that thought, because you won't actually realize the significance of that second pen for another 500 years. The jarring sensory contrast between your grim final moments and what happens next is, well, it's totally overwhelming. You close your eyes in 2026, feeling this rush of cold, then warmth, and then suddenly, light. You wake up, and your body feels startlingly wrong, but actually scratch that, it's a good wrong. That fire in your stomach, gone. The metallic taste of your medication, completely absent. Your veins feel young again. Your body responds instantly. You look out a nearby window and realize it's the year 2526. You're looking at an absolute utopia. The towers outside are swaying gently, like they're grown partly right out of the earth. The air smells perfectly clean, totally unruined by pollution. And the cars, they don't drive or fly. They just glide in these silent, invisible lanes up in the sky. It's a world where terminal disease just literally does not exist anymore. Soon, you're greeted by your guide, a woman named Mira, and she gently breaks the news to you: you've been asleep for over 5 centuries. Out of the vast multitudes of people who signed those contracts back in 2026, you're incredibly rare. You are one of only 41 successfully revived cryosleepers from your original group. And now, you're thrust into this world where absolutely everything is provided for you. I mean, you're given this beautiful room where the walls turn a warm gold just because you want them to. Your clothes adjust automatically to fit you. You're essentially treated like an honored guest of time itself, perfectly safe and perfectly cured. But, we need to investigate the small, unsettling glitches that start to disrupt this perfection. Because let's be real, a utopia is rarely as clean as it seems on the surface. That first week is just a blur of gratitude, but then the wrongness begins. It starts really small. Mira hands you a breakfast of peanut butter on toast, cut diagonally. It's exactly the way your mother used to make it. But wait, you haven't told Mira you like peanut butter. And you definitely haven't told anyone about the diagonal cut. That's not in any medical file. Then the cracks start to widen. When you ask Mira how cancer was actually cured, her bright, cheery voice skips. She doesn't pause, she literally skips sentences, almost like she's jumping over a redacted paragraph she's been programmed not to say. And when you finally go to the supposedly open public archives to look up the cryonics company that froze you, bam, you hit a massive wall of court-ordered redactions. So to map out this conspiracy, you decide to dig deeper into the archives, tracing this really chilling timeline. You find out the cryonics company you trusted went bankrupt back in 2071, and all its assets were sold off to this mysterious research group. Then you stumble upon a heavily redacted scientific paper mentioning a Subject 7. The study dates run from 2089 to 2151, way after you were frozen but way before you woke up. Finally, you see that the research group dissolved, and the new government permanently sealed all their records by court order in 2189. Basically, the entire history of your own body has been classified. How crazy is that? Driven by these breadcrumbs, you start wandering the facility at night. You take a wrong turn down a darker hallway, and suddenly, you find this old, white-haired man leaning against a doorframe. You notice he's missing the tip of his ring finger, and somehow, he knows your name. He looks right at you and says, "You found Subject 7. You'll find the rest of it whether I help you or not." Turns out, he's another one of those 41 revived cryosleepers. He woke up 15 years ago, had the exact same perfect gold room, and followed the exact same trail of breadcrumbs you did. He gestures for you to follow and invites you into this hidden room absolutely packed with ancient, glowing screens. Okay, so here is the absolutely crucial point. It all comes back to the horrifying fine print of that contract you hastily signed 500 years ago without reading. The old man pulls up your original document. He points a bent finger to page 31, section 14, subsection C. In your desperate rush to beat cancer, you technically consented to the use of your preserved body and neural data for, quote, ongoing comparative research. The clause states the company had the legal right to thaw, sample, copy, and represent your neural data. So legally speaking, your very consciousness became the intellectual property of a corporation. And what exactly did they do with that property? Well, the old man looks at you and delivers a staggering number, 412. When the cryonics company went under, the new buyer used that exact clause to run experiments on your scanned neural data. For hundreds of years, they spun up 412 simulated versions of your mind in digital environments. Some versions lived for just a few hours, but some were given full, complete lives, from childhood to old age, living to be 104 in these virtual labs. They had names, they had favorite songs, they experienced real joy and real agonizing suffering. And when the data collection was over, someone simply hit a key and that version of you was completely erased. Just like that. The horrifying truth of this entire scenario really boils down to this. The old man says it plainly. The technology that lets the people of this city live forever, they built it on us. All those miraculous cures, the perfect health, the stunning disease-free utopia floating right outside your gold-lit room, none of it was a clean scientific breakthrough. No, it was built entirely on the non-consensual suffering of your simulated selves. The 41 people who survived, you were just the control group. Eventually, the government outlawed the practice and sealed the records out of pure shame. They decided the kindest thing to do was to let the surviving 41 live out their days in ignorant luxury, pampered in gold rooms, just to assuage the city's hidden guilt. But wait, the horror doesn't stop with you. The old man pulls up a second contract. It was signed on the exact same day, in the exact same hour, in a different room of that 2026 clinic. Her name was Hannah. And suddenly, we learn the truth about that second pen you heard scratching behind the door. Hannah was your paired research subject. Every single time the scientists spun up a simulated copy of you to suffer and be studied, they spun up a simulated copy of Hannah to live right alongside you in perfectly matched conditions. And here is where the digital reality becomes intensely, painfully visceral. Hannah woke up 2 years ago, but unlike you, she didn't wake up with a clean slate. Due to a data storage flaw, basically a glitch when the researchers merged a long-running simulation back into her prime template, her memories bled across. She woke up remembering a 46-year simulated life. She clearly remembers a small wooden house with floors that creaked. She remembers a dog. She remembers a neighbor who brought her soup in the rain. She knows intellectually it was just code and variables, but to her, it feels 100% real. And most importantly, she remembers a face from that simulated life. It was your face. So you sneak out into the silent city at night, and you find Hannah. Over a cup of tea, she lays out a direct, totally unyielding plan to expose the dark foundation of their paradise. The citizens of this future naively believe their technology is clean, right? They think it just came peacefully from a lab. Well, Hannah wants to shatter that illusion. Her plan is simple. Step 1. Use the old man's access to reach a server room 4 levels beneath the facility. Step 2. Copy every sealed record, every redacted paper, and every single experiment log. Step 3. Push all of that horrific data directly into the public archives. Make it truly open. Force 41 living people to stand up and say to the world, this is what you built your paradise on. Which forces you into an utterly impossible choice. Let's look at the options. On one side, you expose the truth. You validate the immense suffering of your 412 erased lives, and you give real meaning to the 46 simulated years Hannah lived and loved. But by doing so, you completely destroy the peace of an entire civilization. On the flip side, you choose to live in ignorance. You let the copies remain as unacknowledged data. You walk through the beautiful gardens, you eat the perfect breakfast Mira brings you, and you just let your gold-lit room be enough. You allow millions of people to live without the crushing guilt of knowing their children's perfect health was literally bought with your endless, repetitive deaths. So what's it gonna be? Do you tear open the truth, knowing it won't actually give those 412 simulated copies their lives back, but will only strip away the city's innocent peace? Or do you let it go? Swallow the trauma, and simply ride those silent gliding cars into the future? I want to leave you with this final, really provocative question. When utopia requires a hidden nightmare to exist, what would you do? Take a moment to really think about that cheap blue pen back in 2026 and ask yourself, would you turn a blind eye to paradise?